I already told you no. You can't pump gas here. This isn't a charity, Brad, the white gas station manager, shouted, his voice dripping with disdain. Diana, desperate and confused, pleaded with him. Please, I just need enough gas to get to the next station. My tank is almost empty, but Brad didn't care. In fact, he seemed to enjoy her desperation. That's not my problem. The next station's about an hour away. Maybe you should have thought about that before coming to my store. Diana's hands shook with rage as she responded, You can't refuse me service for no reason. That was when Brad got right in her face. And what he said next made everyone's blood boil. I can refuse service to anyone I want, especially people like you who don't belong here. Now get in your little car and pray you make it out of here. They were trying to strand her, an hour from the nearest gas station, tank nearly empty. It wasn't just discrimination. It was dangerous. What Brad didn't know was that Diana Williams wasn't just any customer. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Earlier that day, Diana had been driving for hours, her heart filled with anticipation. At 42, she was the CEO and founder of Williams Energy Corporation, a gas station empire she had built from nothing. From one tiny station 2 decades ago, she had expanded to 848 locations across the country, employing over 12,000 people and serving millions daily. She remembered the early years, 16-hour shifts, cleaning bathrooms herself, facing banks that doubted a young black woman's competence. Yet she had pushed through, guided by one belief. Every customer deserves dignity and respect. Today, she wasn't thinking about business. She was on her way to Stanford University for her daughter Sarah's graduation in engineering. Sarah was brilliant, compassionate, everything Diana had hoped she'd become. Lost in thought, Diana didn't notice her fuel gauge dropping until the warning light blinked red. Glancing at the GPS, she smiled. The next station ahead was one of her own, a Williams Energy outlet in Riverside, Nevada. She could have stopped at Shell or BP, but this was better. She often visited her own stations incognito, wearing jeans and a faded Stanford sweatshirt to blend in. When she appeared as a CEO in a suit, everything looked perfect. But when she came as a regular customer, she saw the truth. The parking lot buzzed with Friday activity, families filling up before weekend trips, teenagers grabbing snacks, truckers topping off tanks. Diana loved seeing a busy station. It meant jobs, progress, and success. But as she watched from her car, her business instinct stirred. Something felt wrong. She studied the employees. Brad Patterson, 35, the manager, swaggering loud, acting like he owned the place. Tommy Rodriguez, 28, his shadow, laughing at every remark, eager to impress. Jessica Chen, 24, quiet, nervous, efficient but fearful. When white customers approached, Brad and Tommy were all smiles and charm, helping carry heavy boxes, joking about cars and weekend plans. But when an elderly black man entered politely asking where the air pump was, Brad didn't even look up. Machine's over there. Figure it out yourself. The man thanked him anyway and walked away, and Brad muttered something to Tommy that made them both snicker. Diana's heart sank. This was her company, built to serve everyone equally. Yet here stood the opposite of everything she believed in. Determined to see more, Diana got out and headed toward the pumps. She had taken only a few steps when the door slammed open and Brad stormed out. "Excuse me, where do you think you're going?" he barked. Diana froze. "To get gas." "Not here, you're not. We reserve the right to refuse service." "I have money," she said calmly, holding up her card. "I don't like your attitude," Brad snapped. "What attitude?" "I haven't even—" Tommy stepped beside him. "Yeah, we've had problems with people like you before." Diana frowned. "People like me?" Brad sneered. "You know exactly what I mean." Her stomach turned. "Please, I just need a few gallons." "Where's the next station?" "About an hour down the highway," Brad said coolly. "Hope you make it," Tommy laughed. "Maybe you should have planned better." Customers nearby began to notice. Dorothy Martinez, a 60-something woman pumping gas, stared open-mouthed. Tyler Johnson, a college kid, quietly lifted his phone and started recording. Frank Wilson, a mechanic, folded his arms, watching grimly. A white customer called from another pump. "Hey, pump's not reading my card." Brad's face instantly changed. "Absolutely, sir. Be right there." He hurried to help, chatting warmly. When he returned, his friendliness vanished. "You need to leave." "You're helping everyone else," Diana said. "Why not me?" "Because I said so." "Private property," Tommy muttered. "Go back to the city. This is a decent neighborhood." The meaning was clear. "My car's almost empty," Diana said. "If you don't serve me, I could be stranded." Brad smiled coldly. "Sounds like a you problem." Dorothy couldn't stay silent. "Young man, that's no way to treat a customer." Brad snapped. "Mind your business." Frank muttered. "This ain't right." Brad glared. "You want to keep buying gas here? Then mind your business too." The cruelty deepened. Brad stepped closer. "You know what? I hope you do run out of gas. Maybe it'll teach you and your kind to stay where you belong. This is our town," Tommy grinned. "Yeah, maybe the desert'll set you straight." Diana's voice shook with controlled fury. "You're refusing me because of my race." "That's illegal," Brad mock cried, rubbing his eyes. "Oh no, the poor lady's out of gas." Dorothy trembled and took out her phone. "I'm calling the police." "This is discrimination." Brad chuckled. "Call whoever you want." "We're not breaking any laws," Tommy added. "Tell him she had a bad attitude." Jessica stood frozen by the door, guilt in her eyes. Tyler kept recording, stunned by the open hatred. Brad leaned close, hissing, "You don't belong here, lady." "Not you, not your kind." That was the breaking point. Diana's expression hardened. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "David," she said steadily. "It's Diana, emergency at the Riverside location." "Bring security and HR immediately." Brad burst into mocking laughter. "Calling the NAACP? Or your baby daddy? Nobody's gonna help you here. You're in Trump country," Tommy echoed. "Yeah, whoever you called can't do anything to us. We know our rights." Diana's voice stayed calm. "You'll find out who I called soon enough." "What's that supposed to mean?" Brad demanded. She met his eyes. "I just called the head of operations for Williams Energy Corporation, the company that owns this gas station. The company I built." For a moment, the entire lot went silent. Brad's smirk vanished. Tommy's face went pale. Jessica gasped. "In 7 minutes," Diana said. "I'm coming back with my team. And when I do, you'll wish you'd sold me that gas." She turned, walked to her SUV, and shut the door. Inside, she exhaled deeply. Her hands trembled, but her eyes blazed. The casual traveler was gone. The CEO had returned. Diana sat in the driver's seat, fury and focus battling inside her. She looked in the mirror, the woman staring back at her no longer the weary traveler, but the powerhouse who had built an empire from dust. Slowly, she reached into her travel bag, pulling out her crisp navy blue power suit. The same one that had appeared on the Forbes cover when she'd been named Entrepreneur of the Year. Off came the faded sweatshirt. On went the blazer. She tied her hair neatly, slipped on her heels, and glanced once more into the mirror. The casual customer was gone. The CEO had arrived. Her phone rang. "Sarah. Mom, are you close? The ceremony starts in a few hours." "I might be late, sweetheart," Diana said softly. "Something urgent's come up at one of my stations. I'll explain when I get there." "I love you." "I love you too, Mom." Diana hung up, eyes flicking to the highway. In the distance, 3 dark vehicles turned off the main road and rumbled toward the lot. Reinforcements. From the first SUV stepped David Kim, her head of operations, a precise, methodical man who had helped her expand from 50 stations to nearly 900. His usual calm expression had hardened into outrage. From the second car emerged Rebecca Martinez, director of HR, notebook in hand, eyes sharp behind her glasses. She was known for fairness, but also for never tolerating discrimination of any kind. Behind them, 2 uniformed security officers climbed out of a corporate van, scanning the premises. Diana briefed them quickly, her tone controlled. Manager Brad Patterson refused service. "Racial harassment, threats to strand me, multiple witnesses, and at least 1 video recording." David's jaw clenched. "Unbelievable." Rebecca scribbled notes furiously. "He said he hoped you'd run out of gas?" "Word for word. We'll handle it," Rebecca said. "Do we have the witness?" Yes, Diana replied. The college kid, Tyler Johnson, has the whole thing on video. Diana checked her watch. 7 minutes. Time's up, she said. Let's go. The group moved as one across the lot, Diana in the lead, David and Rebecca flanking her, security following. The crowd that had gathered earlier turned their heads. Dorothy Martinez still stood by her car, watching intently. Frank Wilson leaned on his truck, jaw tight. Tyler's phone camera was already up, ready to capture whatever came next. Brad looked up from the counter as the glass door swung open. His face hardened. I told you to leave, he barked. You can't just... Diana's stride didn't falter. She stopped at the counter, placed a gold-embossed business card and her corporate ID directly in front of him. Your property? She asked, her voice even but cold. Let's see the deed. Brad frowned, staring at the card like it was fake. David Kim stepped forward, setting a slim briefcase on the counter. He flipped it open and spread a stack of documents in front of Brad. Ownership certificates, chain of command charts, and tax filings all bearing the Williams Energy logo. This station, David said, along with 847 others, is owned by Williams Energy Corporation. Miss Williams is the founder, majority shareholder, and CEO. Brad blinked, color draining from his face. Rebecca added a thick binder labeled Employee Conduct and Anti-Discrimination Policy. Here's the handbook you signed when you were hired. Page 22, Zero Tolerance for Discriminatory Behavior. Page 23, Grounds for Immediate Termination. Tyler stepped forward nervously but firmly. I've got the whole thing on video, he said. Everything. The slurs, the threats, all of it. Diana turned slightly toward him. Thank you, she said. That footage will make sure this never happens again. Jessica, standing frozen behind the register, suddenly burst into tears. Oh my God, Miss Williams, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, Tommy stumbled backward, pale. I didn't say anything. It was all Brad. I was just following orders. Security moved quietly toward the back exit to block his escape. Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. This is fake. Some scam. You people printed these. David's tone sharpened. Mr. Patterson, every document here is verified. You are speaking to the woman who built this company from the ground up. Rebecca flipped to another page. Here's your signature on the annual compliance form. You confirmed that you read and understood our equal service policy. Brad looked around wildly. Dorothy Martinez stepped inside. I saw the whole thing, she said clearly. He told her he hoped she'd run out of gas. Said she didn't belong here. Frank Wilson followed her in. And he threatened me for speaking up. The room fell silent. Customers began whispering. Tyler's camera never wavered. Diana stood tall in the middle of her own store, surrounded by evidence, witnesses, and the very employees who had humiliated her. Her voice was calm but lethal. Brad Patterson, she said, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. He gaped at her. You can't do this. I've got rights. You had the right to treat customers with respect, Diana replied. You chose hatred instead. Security stepped forward. Brad's protest turned to shouts as they guided him toward the door. Diana faced Tommy. Tommy Rodriguez, you're also terminated. You laughed while your manager tried to strand a woman in the desert. You encouraged him. Tommy's eyes filled with panic. Please, Miss Williams, I need this job. I didn't mean it. We were just joking. Racism isn't a joke, she said evenly. Pack your things. Finally, her eyes turned to Jessica, who was trembling behind the counter. Jessica Chen. Jessica's voice cracked. Please, I was scared. I wanted to say something, but Diana's tone softened but stayed firm. Fear doesn't excuse silence. When you watch injustice and do nothing, you become part of it. You're dismissed as well. Rebecca handed each of them written termination notices. David instructed security to escort the three out and change the locks by morning. Brad resisted until the last second, his voice echoing through the store. You'll regret this. Diana didn't flinch. No, she said quietly. You will. When the doors closed behind the disgraced employees, Diana turned to the remaining customers, Dorothy, Frank, Tyler, and the few newcomers who had gathered outside. This station, she said clearly, will be closed for 1 week for restaffing and retraining. When it reopens, it will serve every customer, every color, every background, with dignity and respect. That's not just policy. That's our promise. Applause broke out spontaneously. Dorothy wiped tears from her cheeks. Frank nodded approvingly. Tyler lifted his phone, still recording. Diana walked outside, heels clicking against the concrete. The setting sun bathed the lot in golden light. She stopped by her SUV, slid her card into the pump, and began filling her own tank. The very act Brad had denied her. It was a quiet, powerful symbol. The woman who had been refused service now serving herself at her own business. Dorothy approached, voice trembling. "Honey, I've waited a lifetime to see justice like that." "You showed him," Diana smiled softly. "Sometimes justice just needs the right witness." Tyler hurried over. "Miss Williams, the video's already going viral. People online are calling you the CEO who ended racism at the pump." Frank joined them, guilt etched on his face. "Ma'am, I should have done more. Should have spoken louder." "You did what you could," Diana said. "What matters is that you cared enough to speak at all." Rebecca and David joined her by the car. "We'll start the investigation tonight," Rebecca said. "Press inquiries will flood in once the video spreads." "Let them," Diana answered. "The world should see what accountability looks like." She finished fueling, replaced the nozzle, and turned toward the small crowd that had gathered again. "Remember this," she said. "Prejudice thrives on silence, but when people stand up, it ends." The crowd clapped again, louder this time. The desert evening light stretched long shadows across the parking lot. The air felt charged, not with anger anymore, but with the quiet hum of something powerful. Justice, finally done. As Brad, Tommy, and Jessica were escorted to their cars by security, Dorothy folded her arms. "I've lived 68 years, she said softly to no one in particular, "and I've seen plenty of hate. But I've never seen anyone shut it down like that woman just did." Tyler's phone buzzed nonstop. "Miss Williams, this clip already has over 50,000 views. People are sharing it everywhere. They're calling it the gas station lesson." Diana looked at him, a faint smile on her face. "Then let them see it. The world needs reminders that respect isn't optional." Rebecca joined her, tablet in hand. "We'll need to issue an official statement tonight. Once corporate PR sees this, it's going to make national headlines." Diana nodded. "Good, let it. I want the public to know where we stand, and that we take action, not excuses." Frank Wilson, the mechanic, approached hesitantly, hat in hand. "Ma'am, I've been coming here for years. Never realized what that man was like behind the counter. I should have done more, and I'm sorry for staying quiet." Diana placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did something most people don't. You spoke up even when it was uncomfortable." "That matters, Frank." He nodded, emotion tightening his voice. "You got my respect, Miss Williams. Whole town's gonna talk about this one." "Let them," she said again, her tone firm but gentle. Sometimes the talk is what starts change. By now, more locals had pulled into the station, drawn by word of what had happened. Some were still in disbelief. Others applauded as Diana turned toward them. One woman called out, "You're really the owner?" "I am," Diana answered simply. "And you fired them?" "Just like that?" "Just like that," she replied. "Hate doesn't get a warning. It gets consequences." The crowd clapped, a mix of cheers and murmurs. Diana looked around, at the logo bearing her name, at the signs she'd designed 20 years ago, at the pump where she had been humiliated only an hour earlier. She felt a fierce kind of peace. David approached. "We've spoken to the witnesses. Everything's on record. Written statements, the video, the names of every bystander. This case is airtight." Rebecca nodded. "And the corporate policy allows immediate dismissal for violations like this. There's no loophole they can hide behind." "Good," Diana said. "Then I want this station completely restructured. We'll close for a week, hire new management from the community, people who actually represent it. Make this place a symbol of what we stand for." David smiled faintly. "Already in motion." Diana exhaled deeply, her anger finally giving way to resolve. She turned toward the customers gathered outside. "I started this company," she said, voice strong and clear, because I wanted a place where everyone, rich or poor, local or traveler, black, white, brown, anyone, could be treated with respect. That's the foundation this business was built on, and that will never change. A murmur of approval spread through the small crowd. Someone shouted, "We're with you!" Another added, "This town needs more people like you." Diana smiled humbly. "It's not just about me. It's about what's right. Every one of us has power. You don't have to own a company to make a stand. You just have to speak up." She reached into her bag and handed Dorothy a business card. "If anyone ever treats you like that at any Williams Energy station, you call this number. It'll ring my office directly." Dorothy took the card with trembling fingers. "Honey," she said, voice thick with emotion, "you're something special. Don't ever stop doing what you're doing." "I won't," Diana said softly. Tyler came closer. "Miss Williams, can I post your name with the video? Everyone should know who you are." Diana considered it for a moment, then nodded. "Yes. Let them know that discrimination isn't faceless, and neither is accountability." He smiled broadly. "You got it." The station lights flickered on as dusk settled. Security closed off the entrances, locking the doors. Rebecca stayed behind with a small team to begin internal documentation. David arranged for a cleanup crew to arrive in the morning. Diana remained near her SUV, leaning lightly against the door. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. The events replayed in her mind: Brad's sneer, the mocking laughter, the moment she'd revealed who she was. Anger had driven her to action, but justice had steadied her hand. Rebecca approached again. "We'll file the official termination reports and forward everything to legal tonight. HR will contact the press in the morning. You want to review the release?" "Not yet," Diana said. "Right now, I just need a drive." David nodded. "Understood. We'll take it from here. Go see your daughter graduate, boss." She smiled, her expression softening. "Thank you, David. I'll call you tomorrow." They shook hands, not as CEO and subordinate, but as partners who had built something bigger than themselves. As Diana got into her SUV, Dorothy and Frank waved goodbye. Tyler filmed one last clip, capturing her behind the wheel as the caption flashed, "When you stand for what's right, the whole world stands with you." The crowd slowly dispersed. The desert wind picked up, carrying the last glimmers of daylight. Diana started the engine, the tank finally full. The gentle hum of the car sounded like triumph. She pulled onto the open highway, the neon sign of her station shrinking in the rearview mirror. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman composed, strong, unshaken. Her phone buzzed again. "Sarah." "Mom, are you on your way yet?" "Yes, sweetheart. I just left. You okay? Everyone online's talking about this video. Is that really you?" Diana smiled faintly. "It's me, and I'm fine. I'll tell you everything when I get there." Sarah hesitated. "Mom, I'm proud of you. Those words, simple, heartfelt, were worth more than any corporate award." Diana's voice softened. "I'm proud of you too, baby. This graduation isn't just yours. It's ours." The highway stretched before her, glowing orange beneath the sunset. As the miles rolled by, she reflected on what had happened. She had faced racism many times before, but this time it had been different. It hadn't been in a boardroom or a bank. It had been on the open road, where a manager believed his prejudice gave him power, but she had turned that moment of hate into something else, a lesson. For her employees, for the witnesses, for anyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong. She thought about the elderly man who'd been dismissed earlier, about the customers who had stayed silent out of fear, about Jessica, who had cried but done nothing. They were all pieces of a larger truth. Prejudice only wins when good people stay quiet. She pressed the accelerator, determination in her eyes. The future of her company would be different now. There would be deeper training, stronger leadership, and zero tolerance for anything less than respect. Her car's Bluetooth chimed as Rebecca's number flashed on the screen. "Yes, Rebecca?" "We've completed the initial report," Rebecca said. "Tyler's video has over 2 million views already. It's being shared across major platforms." "You're trending nationwide." Diana's grip tightened slightly on the wheel. Then we'll use it for good. Schedule a press statement tomorrow. I want to talk about accountability, not outrage. Understood, Rebecca said. And Miss Williams? Yes? You handled this with more grace than most could. You didn't just fire them, you taught everyone a lesson. Diana smiled faintly. That's what leadership is, Rebecca. You can't control people's hearts, but you can control what you stand for. The highway unfolded like a ribbon of molten gold beneath the setting sun. The heat haze softened the distant mountains, and Diana finally felt her body relax for the first time that day. Her anger had burned away, replaced by calm conviction. She glanced at the fuel gauge, full. The simple sight made her smile. A few hours ago, these same numbers had meant fear, humiliation, and helplessness. Now they stood for strength, control, and justice restored. The road signs began to change. Stanford University, 30 miles. Her heart swelled with anticipation. The thought of Sarah walking across that stage brought back memories of all the nights she had worked until dawn, her daughter asleep in the office chair beside her. For Diana, this graduation wasn't just an academic milestone, it was the living proof that her sacrifices had meaning. By the time she arrived, the campus glowed under strings of soft lights. Families filled the courtyard, laughter and music mingling with the evening air. Students in red gowns posed for photos, their parents glowing with pride. Sarah spotted her mother the moment she stepped out of the car. "Mom!" she cried, running across the grass. Diana opened her arms, holding her tight. "You did it, baby," Sarah pulled back, eyes shining. "No, we did it. And Mom, I saw everything. The video's everywhere. You're all over the news." Diana chuckled softly. "Of course it is. They called you the CEO of courage," Sarah said. "You stood up to racism on your own property. The internet's going crazy." Diana smoothed her daughter's graduation stole with a mother's tenderness. Then maybe the world's learning something important, that silence is never strength, and kindness is never weakness. Sarah nodded. "Everyone at school's talking about it. You made them believe justice still exists." Later that night, as the graduation crowd dispersed, Diana's phone vibrated nonstop. Calls from reporters, emails from corporate offices, messages from civil rights groups thanking her for her response. She finally answered one from her communications director. "Miss Williams, we've received over 1,000 statements of support. Customers are pledging loyalty to Williams Energy because of what you did. We're seeing the highest public engagement in company history." Diana listened quietly. "That's good," she said. "But make sure the message isn't about me. Make it about the principle, about doing what's right even when nobody's watching." "Yes, ma'am." When the call ended, she slipped her phone into her purse and looked around the campus courtyard. Students laughed in clusters, taking selfies, dreaming of their futures. Sarah stood with her friends, tossing her cap into the air. In that instant, Diana felt a wave of peace wash over her. The chaos of the day had come full circle, from humiliation to victory, from hatred to hope. In the days that followed, the story dominated national news. The viral video had been replayed millions of times. Journalists praised her decisive leadership, while activists called it a defining moment in corporate accountability. The Riverside station reopened a week later under new management. Fresh paint, new staff, and a bold banner fluttering under the canopy read, "Everyone welcome, respect is non-negotiable." Dorothy stopped by the grand reopening, proudly cutting the ribbon alongside the new team. Tyler, now something of a local celebrity, filmed an update video showing the station's transformation. Frank serviced the company trucks parked outside, grinning at every new face that pulled in. Inside, a framed plaque hung above the counter, in honor of Diana Williams, who reminded us that justice belongs to everyone. A week later, Diana appeared on a national talk show. The host leaned forward, curiosity written across his face. "You're being hailed as a hero for what you did. Did you ever consider just walking away?" Diana smiled faintly. "I could have. But walking away wouldn't have changed anything. Standing firm did." "What would you say to others who face discrimination like you did?" She paused before answering. Don't let anger consume you. Let it guide you to action. You don't need power to demand respect. You just need courage to say, enough. The audience broke into applause. The host smiled. You've started a movement, Miss Williams. Then I hope it keeps moving, she said quietly. Because justice shouldn't need a headline to exist. That night, back in her home office, Diana sat by the window, the framed Forbes magazine cover beside her. She looked down at the worn Stanford sweatshirt folded on the chair, the same one she had worn that day. She smiled, remembering Brad's sneer, the laughter, the disbelief when she revealed who she was. It wasn't triumph she felt now, but gratitude, that she had been in the right place at the right time to show what leadership truly meant. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Sarah. Mom, thank you for showing me how to be brave. Diana's eyes softened. She typed back, You'll do greater things, baby. Just never forget. Power means nothing if you don't use it to lift others. Weeks later, Williams Energy announced a new company-wide program called Project Dignity, a mandatory initiative on anti-discrimination, customer empathy, and leadership ethics. Diana personally visited every regional branch, speaking to new recruits and reminding them why the company existed. Every person who walks through our doors, she told them, is a guest, not a statistic. What we sell is not just fuel, it's trust. Her words became the company's new motto, engraved on plaques and posters across hundreds of stations. Reporters continued to write about her story. But for Diana, the real victory was quieter, seeing people of every color filling her stores, greeting each other without fear. Months later, while driving again through Nevada, Diana passed the same Riverside exit. She slowed, smiling at the sight of the newly renovated station. Fresh paint gleamed under the midday sun. The new manager, a young black woman in uniform, was helping a Latino family refill their minivan. Diana parked briefly across the street, watching. She didn't need to go inside this time. The scene spoke for itself. Respect had returned. As she pulled back onto the highway, her reflection in the rearview mirror looked calm. Proud, unshaken, she spoke softly to herself, as if to the thousands who'd watched her story unfold. Justice isn't about revenge, it's about transformation. And sometimes, all it takes is one person to say no more. The desert wind rushed past her windows. The horizon stretched wide and clear. Diana Williams, once refused service at her own gas station, drove onward, not as a victim, but as a symbol of what true leadership looks like when the world needs it most.